Hi, Anna. Good. Where are you located in California? Okay, I need a little help spelling that. Hold on. Okay, can you tell me how to spell that? Hold on a second. Atasca. Atascadero. Okay, tell Matt that I'm not ignoring him. I don't think he's sorry, Matt, I'm not ignoring you. So again, I'll have all this stuff fixed by Monday. I'm just jury rigging it today, or cherry rigging it. Just doing that today. But we are live on all platforms. Everything's working right now. And we're now recording. Zoom, we're on. I'm taking you off right now. You're listening. I'm monitoring the system. What's that? Okay. Anna, do me a favor, move a little bit to your right. Anna, do me a favor, move a little bit to your, yep, yeah, get close. Make it like you like him. I told her to move closer to her husband because it makes me believe you like him. By the way, the background looks really cool, man. Yeah.
Okay, what other cocktails do you recommend with it?
Old fashions are real good, and then we make a Manhattan with some of our forager late harvest Zinfandel that's aged in a barrel. So it's almost like a sweet vermouth, but we call it a prohibition wine.
Oh, nice. Oh, I love late harvest wines. That's a great idea. So we've got about 30 seconds left, so I'm gonna stay quiet, and then the clock will go to 00, and we'll be off to the races, guys. Thanks so much for joining. I can't wait to have this conversation with you both. Hey everybody, my name is Matt Collins. Welcome to Simulmedia Live. It's great to have you here today. Biff, if we can bring the music down, that'd be helpful. All right, we are, without a doubt, we are in a live show. So let me send a message off to our producer and see if we can get the music down.
Are you having problems with audio?
No, the music is going in the background. I can't hear myself. That's all right.
I thought maybe you guys wanted to dance.
That's next. After
No,
the
that's all
drinks,
right.
right?
That's
No.
right. It is Friday after all, and there's no doubt we are a live show,
I know.
as we've
Well,
just
what
shown for
happened was I
everybody.
was clicking on the solo button for
So,
the
Cliff,
guests.
I can still hear you. So if you can bring it down. Thanks everybody for joining. My name is Matt Collins, and thank you to all of you who are watching, wherever you're watching, however you're watching. As we've just shown you, it is a live show, and we get through it. Back in the old days, not that long ago, when we were broadcasting from our offices in Manhattan, we would sometimes be interrupted by sirens or noises from the office, and I like to say then, there's no doubt that all those moments put the live and Simulmedia live, and we just had one of those. So thanks for bearing with us. So let me set up the show today. This is one that I've been looking forward to doing for a long time. We had probably going back now 3 or 4 weeks ago, we had people remember seeing Bob Leodis, who is the president CEO of the Association of National Advertisers, or the ANA, one of the biggest trade groups that represents the marketing and advertising industry. We had him on the show, and he talked about the importance of what brands can do right now in and amidst the pandemic, and customer behaviors altered by both public health and economic realities that were just unimaginable, I think, a couple months ago. And he used this one turn of phrase, which I love, and he's repeated it since many times. The notion that brands need to develop a muscle of story doing, not storytelling. And it's his reminder, as I internalize it, for brands to step up and do the right thing before they talk the talk, walk the walk. And it all comes down to, how can a brand be most helpful to its community, to its customers right now? Get that squared away, and then figure out how you're going to talk about it to the rest of the world. So that sentiment really struck a chord with me, and has since been repeated by other guests that we've had on Simulmedia Live. Bill Harvey has talked about that. Meryl Draper has talked about that from Core Creative. Brian Weiser talked about that when he was on from Group M. So we've had a number of people who have emphasized that one of the best things brands can do right now is just be helpful. Well, that got me thinking that it would be exciting. It would possibly, I think, be uplifting to actually hear from a brand that had made a decision to do just that. A brand that had decided to go out and be helpful in this moment, to practice story doing, not just storytelling. And so I started doing some research, and my research took me into a trade group that represents a coastal wine and spirits community in coastal California. Town is Paso Robles, California, and this particular operation is called Paso Robles Wineries. It's led by a woman named Lauren Lakai, and I reached out to her to just see if there's anybody there who was perhaps in that community who had made a decision that we've seen from other spirits and alcohol manufacturers to switch over to hand sanitizer. And she said, yes, in fact, a couple of us have. And she introduced me to Central Coast Distillery, run and operated, founded by husband-wife duo Eric and Anna Olson. And and I reached out to them, heard their story, and I said, we've got to get them on. We've got to give our little platform here at Simulmedia Live. We've got to give over to a brand like Central Coast Distillery and their Forager brand of spirits, because of all the great things that they're doing, and that's what I'm so excited to talk about today. So, without further ado, I welcome into Simulmedia Live Eric and Anna Olson of Central Coast Distillery. Thank you guys so much for joining. It's really great to see you, and now I get to see that wonderful distillery in the background. It's wonderful to have you.
Thank you, Matt. It's good to be here.
Thank you.
For having us.
It is such my pleasure. So I want to talk, before we talk about what you're doing today in the switch to making hand sanitizer. I want to get to know your business and have the audience here understand your business. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about this distillery that you've created?
Okay, so we are a very, very small distillery located here on the central coast of California in a small little town called Atascadero. We are in the county of San Luis Obispo, which most people would recognize on the map. And we reside right in the middle between San Luis Obispo, the city, and Paso Robles wine country. We operate in a small facility that's all within our bond line. I'm going to say about 700 square feet. And so everything that we do is is done in very small batches. And it's been exciting to get this distillery started. And of course, our story most recently has begun with the impact of COVID-19. And so that's really where we sit at this particular moment in responding to a need.
And so talk a bit about too the brand, because you've got the name of the business is Central Coast Distillery, but you've come up with a very deliberate brand to put on your spirit. So talk a bit about the Forager brand, its origin, and the kinds of products that the Forager brand resides on.
Certainly. So Forager really comes from a brand that my husband gained within this region as he has operated other entities in food and beverage and such. He has been a forager of botanicals in the area. And this really comes back and stems from the roots of his family back 2 generations when Eureka, California, Eureka was the capital at the time. And the Fitzell family was, in fact, the first pharmacists within California. And they would forage for botanicals off of their 500-acre ranch, and then they would disseminate it through distillations that they made there. And so when we started to look at marketing or putting together the marketing for our products, we really felt that the convictions that we carry to bring about a most holistic, clean, and pure product, that it just resonated so naturally from what my husband's roots are. You want to talk to him a little bit about
Well,
that?
I think you covered it pretty good. Doing a lot of foraging in the county. It's a little bit different. At the time, they were writing about chefs, a farm to table or French trained, so foraging was something the writers could come into the resort and really write about. It was something new. I take them out and we go foraging, and we come back and we make all these different herbs and nuts and berries they've never even written about. So it really went off well.
Eric, talk about what it is that you can find there. What are you foraging for specifically? What kind of ingredients?
Well, there's a lot of different aspects. There's the spiritual aspect of what the native Indians used to think of as far as our local white sage and mugwort to help you dream a little better at night, put in your pillow. And then there's the medicinal properties of those forage items. Milk thistle, what you see in Rockstar, the energy drink, party like a rock star. And this will help you improve your liver. So milk thistle is another one, which is on the medicinal side. Then obviously you got nutritional side. So in the ocean we have dulce, seaweed, kelp, things like that. So there's a lot of components with this, and it makes it really interesting when you go out on these ranches or out on these wineries and you talk to these people. It's what the millennials really love to learn, and it really brings our county to another level.
And you're creating a variety of different spirits. So why don't you walk people through what can they buy from Central Coast Distillery that has the Forager brand on it?
Well, it's interesting you said that. We did ship half a pallet of our bourbon to New York, and we're really proud of that. There's a spirit company that promotes spirits to the community of New York, and they've already tasted some of our bourbon. We personally think in the future we'll be doing a tasting somewhere in New York. We're not sure yet. So then we have a honey vodka made with raw honey, local raw honey, bees, foragers. It has the toyon berries on the label that the local Indians used to make wine out of. It has milk thistle, another thing that they forage on. I guess the most, as far as being proud of something, this is our rum in a bourbon barrel. It won double gold, best in show. Went up against generational rum distilleries all over the world. Antigua, Costa Rica, Cuba. some of the big names, and we walked out as the winner of the whole rum. I can't take all the credit. I work with some really master designers of spirits, Rum University. Got to give them a shout out. So this is our flagship, our rum in a bourbon barrel. Then Anna's brainchild was, if we're in slow, we got to do something organic. So got with a CCOF and made an organic certified gin. It's 89 proof. It's juniper berries, kind of in the back dimension, and forward is more coriander, angelica, cinnamon. It's really smooth, just like all of our spirits. Mixes really good with tonic, which is a malaria thing back in the day. And a rum, a white rum, right now on special. So come on down to the distillery. You get white rum, 2 Cokes, 2 Mexican Cokes, and a bottle or a hand sanitizer, $25. And we're also doing food to go for the community. That's my tip.
I want to. Well, it's terrific product, but I want to get to something which really stood out to me in receiving some of your marketing literature. Some things really stood out to me, and Anna, I want to ask you about this. You describe the spirits that you make as complementing a healthy lifestyle, and in keeping with the convictions that you and Eric have. You're encouraging clean consumption and you bottle only the purest portion of the spirit, which you refer to as the heart of the distillation. Mm-hmm. Talk a bit about the purity of the core of all of these spirits. Is the alcohol, it's the flavoring elements, the organic qualities of these things. Talk a bit about how important this notion of purity, the heart of the distillation, is to the Forager brand.
Sure. Well, you know what? I'm going to actually let Eric answer that question because he's going to speak very specifically to what the process is and why those convictions exist, because he really is the craft distiller.
So our distillery floor is probably about as big as your studio. So we're never going to beat them on quantity. We have to beat them on quality. And what we do is we make the best quality we possibly can. So if you look at big quantity distilleries, they have a continuous still. It just keeps running and running and running, and it keeps those profits running as well. Ours are very small batches, 50 gallons at a time. Everything's hand done by buckets, tasting, nuances. If something doesn't make it, we don't use it. We can't. Really small operation. We send a lot of our spirits to these international judging, so it's really important to us to make those cuts really tight. Take out anything in the front. Obviously, we know there's methyl, and then they're called 4 shots. And once we get into that spirit, that heads, we can actually really smell that. And then we get into that hearts, and we can actually smell that because everything is done with little mason jars, just like you used to see in those good old boy shows. And that's what we're doing. We're taking these little mason jars and working through that, say, perfume, that spirit, that distillate, and finding, hey, this is where we want to be. And then we don't even do tails. They talk about doing tails. We just shut it off. So we don't even go into tails. It's more sustainable not to use that electricity, not to use that water to cool it. So we get a really tight cut. And then after that, it's the barrel processing and what kind of barrels we're going to use and how long they're going to be in the barrels. And once again, we proof it down. We have people come in and taste that we really garner and secure who they are and basically what they say to us. So we listen up front. So when we put something in front of somebody, we already kind of got an idea of what direction it's going to go.
Now, your business has been predominantly, as I understand it, a retail business. You sell memberships to the distillery that allow guests to come in and be able to enjoy your product. You sell the spirits through a retail front-end operation. I imagine that the pandemic and the shelter-in-place orders in California have had a substantial impact on how the distillery makes money, correct?
Correct. And we do have a distributor as well. So with the close of the restaurant businesses, much of that, which is the the whole business has various different veins of how we make money or how you set up your business model. And distillation, the distribution is one. The ability to retail our product here in our tasting room, but we also have what we call a 74 license, which allows us to have not just a tasting room, but we also offer craft cocktails. And within that, we also include another entity, which is in education. So Eric, for example, has worked with Cal Poly and with the extended educational sources to put together classes on intro to distilling and the advanced distilling classes. And then we do our own fun things that are related to our entity here, which would be a nice cocktailing class or how to garnish a drink or grilling classes and how to butcher things. We've really tried to maintain an educational side and include safe serving. So we also offer classes to the folks that do buy our products on how to serve safely within our community, because we wanted to be a leader in all of those convictions within our local area. And so those were all components, but when this hit, it really hit every single entity with maybe the exception of being able to retail out our window a bottle of alcohol. And even with that, we wanted to be really careful because our whole motto was to be to drink safely, drink clean, have a moderate intake. And so if you're all of a sudden trying to change that model by throwing a bottle out the window to help people self-medicate during a tough time is not really in alignment with what our convictions and momentum was for building our business. So with that, we were pretty stunned when all of this hit us. Everything shut down. It was like the faucet was turned off. And fortunately, being tied into a very small community, you very quickly join forces with your local businesses, which are right down our street. And so immediately there were some things of need, and we began to look at what we could do resourcefully within our local area to purchase through our restaurant supply to get people some of the things that they needed, whether it was flour or oil or toilet paper or soaps, whatever the needs were. So we would basically dispense here to our local businesses based on their own personal needs because everything was shutting down. Our phone rang one day, and it was our local pharmacist who has a few degrees in various different areas of pharmacy. And he was having a very difficult time resourcing some quality grade alcohol. And it's been really interesting learning, experiencing, kind of tying together with him. What he was wanting to do was to resource a good quality that he could make a medical grade sanitizer with, and then share in allowing us to have a portion of what he produced. And it just seemed to all make sense for us because, one, it met the convictions of providing a real quality product. We felt comfortable because we were going to be creating an alcohol that is basically consumable. And I was in the spa industry for many years. So when you're selling a product that someone's going to absorb into your skin, it's really important that it's a quality product. And so to make it something that would be a palatable, something they could ingest, level alcohol also means that when it goes through the process with the apothecary, that it's something that is absorbed in your hand is not going to cause later some sort of an alcohol poisoning or anything like that. So if you can ingest it, you can put it in your hands, and more likely it's going to be a product that you can handle for a long time. And so it just seemed like a great marriage for us. When we started to look at the costs associated with it, it became a little bit tough to swallow because the cost associated with it is a little less than break even, to be very honest. But there's a need here. And it was something that was going to be then dispensed, and working with them was going to then provide a resource to our local fire department, to the first responders, some of our homeless folks and our homeless shelters. So there was an area where we could give back to the community and be able to fill a source of need that was really important to what our current circumstances are. So we had to kind of struggle with that and look at that and say, hey, here's another chance for us to participate and be an active member of our community. And then as the demand became more on a daily basis for the local community, it was looking for it, for these bottles of sanitizer, then we decided to bottle in the 2 ounces and sell out our window. And that really became more of a means of a marketing tool for us too, because it gave us the chance to get Forager brand out into areas that we wouldn't normally have been able to get into or get recognition by folks that didn't even know we existed. So with that, we've then expanded also to be able to reopen our kitchens and such, and be able to participate with our local community in meeting their needs for food to go and such as well.
So while we're talking about this, Cliff, can you pull up the image of the hand sanitizer product that I shared with you? I want to show this to the audience because, and I'll talk about my own experience with this product as a consumer of it. The Olsons were kind enough to send me a sampling of their hand sanitizer, and while we're waiting for that image, there it is. My daughter took this photograph this morning in front of some flowers that are blooming. And so what I would describe in just the experience as a consumer is a product that has, the first thing that I noticed about it is what I described as a boozy fragrance. And it's not an accident. This is an alcohol that was designed from its onset to be something that we could drink. It is ethyl alcohol as opposed to other forms of alcohol. So it is the consumable variety. And it's a pleasant smell. It has aromas in it that you would find pleasing in a cocktail that you would drink. But then, of course, it's the experience of having it on your hand. You can see it's dispensed by dropper as opposed to a squeeze bottle. You can see that the packaging and the labeling on the product is similar to what we saw Eric hold up in some of his spirits earlier. And it has the product has a silken feel to it. It is a very pleasing hand feel. It does not cause over dryness. It spreads very evenly. And what really stood out to me in the totality, Eric, as I tried that product and also have sampled some of the whiskey bourbon too, is that there is without a doubt, there is a brand value proposition, a brand conviction that runs through this new product extension. You can see that it's a world-class whiskey bourbon, but you now have created a world-class hand sanitizer that satisfies the most important thing, by the way, that we need sanitizers to do, which is to be antiseptic and to be exceptional at that, but also has other qualities to it that seem to be perfectly in line with the brand conviction that we've talked about, a purity, a cleanliness. The heart of the distillation seems to have passed over into this product. And so you tell me if I'm wrong, but it sure seems like this is a product that absolutely fits within the product line you shared with us earlier.
It fits. I never thought I'd be in the hand sanitizer business, but it fits.
And so describe for us
the
customers for this you described as the local first responders, fire. How much of this are you producing that goes to them versus how much of it is going to people who can get some of this hand sanitizer by ordering one of your spirits?
That's a great question. Working at a distillery and then having a full bar, and then saying that we are the people that control alcohol and consumption, we teach that. When somebody comes in and flashes a badge at you, that's the last thing you want to see. So daily now, people are coming and flashing badges and saying, I'm a sheriff, I work for the DEA, I'm working with these people, I'm from the prison system. So we're seeing badges like crazy now. We're getting a little used to it, but they flash a badge and they get a sanitizer right away. Hey, here, nice seeing you. Remember us when we're driving a little fast to the distillery. More serious side of it, the person we partnered with, the Dr. Scott at the apothecary, we have a list over there of, say, we need 50 bottles, we need 20. So he's controlling the amounts that are going out and making sure that they're going to the right hands in the right proportion, whatever they may be. So I hope that answers your question.
It's about 30% of all the product that's produced.
Got it. Got it.
A little more.
And so just to remind folks, I'm speaking to the owners of Central Coast Distillery and the award-winning Forager brand of spirits, and now makers of a world-class hand sanitizer in a moment the community needs it most, also carrying the Forager brand, Eric and Anna Olson. Just one more question for me, and then I want to encourage our audience who may have questions about any part of your business to go ahead and ask them, and I can see some questions are piling up. Question for me, how can people get this hand sanitizer and your spirits? Should they call, email? What's the best way for them to buy?
Well, if they're in California right now, we can ship anywhere in California. And then if they're in New York, I would encourage their clubs, their bourbon clubs, to have us send them a sample. We'd love to send bourbon to any clubs out there in New York. We just support that wholeheartedly. After the pandemic's over, we'd love for them to come. Obviously, our county, experience the wine, the ocean, all the excellent restaurants, and then stop by the distillery.
And can people who may be watching from any part of the country, if they call your office, can they order and have you ship, or are there some restrictions on where you can ship?
Well, we can ship the sanitizer anywhere, but we got to be real careful about our bourbon. We have different layers of distributors, and there's different crossing state lines and things like that. So it probably could work some things out, and then some things would be an absolute no. Every state's a little different.
Through this pandemic, though, they have lifted a lot of the red tape to allow for to be more lenient in shipping. Unfortunately, the most difficult product to ship in the United States is actually a spirit. Wine has a very different overlay, and so does beer. But spirits, it goes way back to Prohibition times, and they've really never changed a lot of the laws there. But they are currently working on them. So for them to even allow us now to ship to direct to consumer from a spirit perspective during this time period is a huge huge opportunity for us. But they're also doing this as a pilot program because they want to see how it works. And so if it is successful, there are chances that it will go to Congress, and those changes will be made and allow us to do that more freely than what we have in the past.
So I would then just come over the top to say I would encourage folks to go to the company's website, which is foragerspirits.net, spelled exactly as it sounds, foragerspirits.net, and check out their product line. It's not set up, the website's not set up for e-commerce, but I would encourage folks to call, speak to Anna and Eric, see what might be possible, whether it's for being able to buy hand sanitizer, or better yet, their spirits plus their hand sanitizer. And we'll hope that the regulations continue to loosen a bit on how you can ship your product, because it is world-class all the way around. And with that, I want to get to audience questions. So the first question comes from Alyssa. Alyssa wants to know, and this seems like an inside baseball type question that you guys will knock out of the park. What's the mash bill to their bourbon?
That's a good question, Melissa. So we're putting in 150 pounds of corn, and then we're putting in 40 of the barley and 40 of the rye. But for me, the mash bill, the most important thing of the whole mash bill is get the right yeast. We're getting a Kentucky strain yeast from Dr. Patrick Heiss from Firm Solutions. And I've worked with him out there in Kentucky, and we're on the phone constantly with the weather changes and everything else that's going on. Another thing that's super important is get that corn. That corn's got to be like perfect, nothing in it. Sometimes these big distilleries are bringing in railroad cars of corn. You can only imagine what's in that corn. Our corn's spread out. We look at it before we put it in there, throw it in the mash tun, cook it good, 180 degrees. Let it cool down to about 160, and that's when you add your rye and your barley. Let that cool down about 90 degrees, and then you inoculate it with that firm yeast, 900.
He doesn't like what he does. Can you tell?
Yeah, I could tell you're really suffering there under the labor, this the burden of this job that you carry. Uh, Thank you, Alyssa. That's a great question, and one that I guarantee we've never had on Simulmedia Live before. Um, Jeremy would like to know, what's the long-term plan for the hand sanitizer? Will you keep making it after the pandemic ends?
I think Anna should address that. She's perfect for that.
Well, we never had, like I said, we never had plans to go into it, but the demand is coming, particularly from the luxury resort industry, which where I spent 20 plus years of my career. And so where I can see that the need to be able to provide a good quality sanitizer, particular for those that might carry the spa side into those luxury resorts where they want a product that they can count on, that's medicinal grade, and such. So I think that there is a market there for that. I would imagine that we will carry some smaller units here in our distillery for retail. And we're going to kind of test that out and see how it goes. But I can tell you from a heart perspective, and of course to make a living as well, distilled spirits is still at the top of the list.
I can imagine. Well, that's pretty much all the time we have for Simulmedia Live today. But before I let you go, I mentioned your website. Any other ways that people can get in touch with you that you'd like to leave people with?
Yes, they can reach us out on Instagram. We are at Forager Spirits, and we're very active on there. You can see what's going on. We introduce you to various different things that we're involved in, what we're doing for that particular weekend, and of course, announce a lot of the things that we are producing or any new products that come online as well. It's a good way to interact with us.
Well, Anna and Eric Olson, it has been such a pleasure to get to know you, get to learn about your product line, get to know about the decisions that you've made to build a brand that has real power and real authenticity, and how you've extended that brand into a category now that is so in demand. And to stay true to your brand the whole way, and to stay true to the customers that you serve. I salute you both. Thank you so much for coming on and telling your story. And be well and stay safe as we navigate our way through this.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you very much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So with that, we come to a close of another episode of Simulmedia Live. Let me just take a moment to tease what we're going to have for you next week. Next week, we've got 3 great shows. We are going to be speaking to Eric Fisher, who runs a marketing and media consultancy. He is a longtime media veteran. And so he's going to be giving the perspective of how media planning can take advantage of a rare moment in media history where media is on sale, and how planners and buyers should be reacting to that moment. Then on Wednesday, we're going to be speaking to Yin Rani. Yin is a longtime consumer packaged good and agency veteran who now heads the milk industry trade group called Milk Pep. And they are the organization behind so much of the milk advertising that we see. Interestingly, milk is undergoing a change in consumer behavior as we navigate our way through the pandemic. And Yin is going to be talking about the decisions that she's making about how to switch and adjust their marketing to their customer base through some uncertain times, and also talk just about leadership. She's the CEO of this organization, so she'll talk about how other leaders can rise to the moment. And finally, next Thursday, we'll have none other than Terry Kawaja. You know him as the CEO of Luma Partners. He has his own webinar series that's fantastic, which I highly recommend, and he'll be coming on to talk with me about something that we think a lot about here, which is the future of television. So I hope you'll tune into all of those shows, and we'll have many more to come after that. Until next week, I wish all of you a very relaxing weekend. Stay safe, be well, and thanks for watching Simulmedia Live. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.